Hi there, welcome back to Northlight Photographic Workshops, and welcome to another video on the cyanotype. And in this one, what we're going to be going over is what we are now considering the quote-unquote new cyanotype. Now this is a formula that's completely different than the original formula of just potassium ferricyanide and ammonium citrate. What we're going to be using on this one, it's a little more complicated. This was a process that was developed by Mike Ware, but Mike has been involved in doing a lot of things with platinum and palladium and doing some extreme testing on different formulas and things, and they came up with this formula for cyanotype, which is quite basically fantastic. Now, it's not quite as simple as the original formula, but it's much more, it has a much wider exposure scale. So unlike regular cyanotype, which has a pretty short exposure scale and pretty contrasty, this has a much wider exposure scale, bringing it up along with, say, salt printing and things like that. It also tends to cut the exposure times by almost 2/3. So whereas, say, you were exposing a cyanotype for 20 minutes, now you can probably do one for about 8 minutes with this process. It's a much faster process. But it comes with its difficulties as well, mostly in mixing it. Now, it's a little bit more caustic, I would say. I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but it's a little bit more dangerous in the chemistry, in that it uses a little bit of ammonium dichromate, and you're also using ferric ammonium oxalate in this, which is a little bit more, you want to keep yourself not bathing your hands in it or anything like that. But again, it's not like anything, even though you're using potassium ferricyanide and there's a little bit of cyanide in this, it's not the cyanide that you think. Now basically what you're going to need, and I'll show you here, is you're going to need a little bit of, this is potassium ferricyanide, and this is the ferric ammonium oxalate. This little pile here is ammonium citrate. Now that won't be mixed in with the regular formula. That will be mixed up separately. And then here I have a little 10 milliliters of a 1.25% ammonium dichromate. Now, other things that you might want to use or have here for this is a mortar and pestle. In fact, you're definitely going to want to have a mortar and pestle, which is a good thing to have with any chemistry or any chemistry set or any darkroom where you're mixing your own chemistry. You're going to want a couple of beakers, a smaller beaker here. You're going to want an empty black 100 milliliter bottle, and also an empty 25 milliliter bottle as well. Now we're going to be making 100 milliliters of workable solution, and that will give us about enough solution to coat, say, 50 8x10 prints. Now, if you want to mix more at one time, you can just up the different formulas that we're working with here. Now, what I am going to be doing is pausing here for a minute. I'm going to be heating up some water. I want to heat up the water to 120 degrees, and then we're going to be dissolving the ferric ammonium sulfate in there, or ferric ammonium oxalate in there. And then we'll be mixing up a few more chemicals as well. So while I do that, I'm going to put you on pause here, and I'm going to get this water heated up, and when I come back, we're going to start mixing up chemistry. Another thing that I wanted to tell you is that the reason you need the mortar and pestle, it's good to have it, is potassium ferricyanide comes as small crystals, but it's very important that we get it fully dissolved in the solution when we're doing this. So it's good to have the mortar and pestle to grind it down. Now, as you can see here, this is kind of a yellowish, it's yellowish now, a yellowish powder. Well, when I started that, it was kind of an orange, a bright orange crystalline, kind of almost like table salt. So when I grind it down, it turns into this nice yellow color, and that's what you want. Now the other thing is that the ferric ammonium oxalate also comes that way, and it's good because that needs to be dissolved, and that's what we're dissolving in the heated water. It is better if it's ground a little bit more as well. Now I will tell you, I've pre-ground these in the mortar and pestle, and when I did that, I used face covering. It's good to use gloves, and it's good to use some sort of a dust mask when you're doing that, because you don't want this to get airborne and to breathe it in. Do it in a well-ventilated area, and don't get crazy with the mortar and pestle. You're not going to really kick up a lot of it, but you really should wear the mask just to be safe, okay? Now, the other thing that you're going to want to have is a hot plate of some sort to be able to heat this water up to 120 or around 120 degrees, and you're going to want to keep it warm throughout this the mixing process. So you'll see what I mean when we get going here. So bear with me, and I'll be right back, okay? Okay, so now we've got our water heated up to about 125 degrees. It took probably a half hour to get that heated up on my hot plate. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to be adding slowly the ferric ammonium oxalate to this. And the other thing you're going to want to have is a glass mixing rod. I like to use glass mixing rods when I do these. Okay, so now we've got our heated 30 milliliters of water. It's quite warm. Now, I'm very slowly going to start adding the ferric ammonium oxalate to this. I want to be careful not to spill it. Now, it seems like an awful lot of volume to mix up, an awful lot of powder to mix up in such a small volume of water. Now, this again is 30 grams of the ferric ammonium oxalate. Now, as you can see, as I dump it in here, it starts to turn a little bit brown. Now the thing is that I'm going to mix this up as well as I possibly can, but when this process is over, when I've done with my mixing process, I'm going to have to let this cool for a while, and when I cool it, there'll be a bit of a sludge will start to show up, and what I'm going to need to do is filter that out. So another thing that you're going to need is going to be a coffee filter, or what you could also do is stack up several layers of paper towel. Now, as you can see here, this goes into solution pretty easily, which is part and parcel because I did a little bit of grinding with the mortar and pestle ahead of time. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is get this all mixed up and make sure that there's no more particulate matter left in there. Now you see I've got a really nice dark green solution now. And I have got all of the particulate matter mixed out of there. So what I'm going to do is set that off to the side here, because the next thing that I do is I'm going to take in and I'm going to mix in the, I'm going to put this into a bigger beaker, of course, right now, but I'm going to mix this in with the ammonium dichromate right now, the 1.25% ammonium dichromate. So let's put this down in there. Okay, now I'm going to take the ammonium dichromate and I'm going to mix that in there as well. Now, the ammonium dichromate acts as a preservative, among other things, but what this will do is it will allow this to have quite a long shelf life. So as long as you keep it in a brown stoppered bottle, it should last indefinitely. So there, as you can see, I've got that mixed up quite nicely, and you can see that it's still a very nice green solution. Now it's time to mix in the potassium ferricyanide. Now the potassium ferricyanide, it's very important that we get this into solution, so that's why I've ground it up. But we're going to mix this in here now. And as you can see, it is starting to look kind of like a green orange mush. We want to keep stirring this up and get everything mixed up in there, and make sure that you keep the crushing down the remaining powder. Like I say, it's very important that you get all of the potassium ferricyanide into solution. And you can see now that it's getting quite green again. I can still hear that there's a little particulate matter down inside of there. It also helps if you put it back onto the hot plate, keep it warm while this is happening. Now when you're doing this yourself, you're going to notice that this doesn't seem terribly clear solution anymore. It's starting to look kind of muddy. And after we let it cool, there may be a little bit more of that sludge, that muddiness in there that we're going to have to filter out. So I'm going to let that heat. Keep on the heater a little bit more. I'm going to dissolve it a little bit more, and then I'm going to put it into the dark and let it cool. and I'll come back to you at that point once it's cool, and we'll filter it out and we'll continue on from there, all right? So here, I've got it all done, and there's definitely a sludge in there. And I am told that that sludge is now ferric ammonium, or ferric potassium oxalate now. And we want to get rid of that sludge. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter this out into, here, let me put this over in here. We're going to filter this out into its final bottle here. Now, this is about 33 milliliters of usable solution here right now, and we're going to top that off to make it 100 milliliters. Now, what we can do though is also dilute this even further and go to 200 milliliters, but what will happen then is it will be a slightly less dark image, and it would be a little faster that way, but it wouldn't be quite as rich or dark an image. So I like to keep it at the 100 milliliters and I don't dilute it any further than that. So what I'm going to do here is I've got a little coffee filter here and a little funnel, and I'm going to take the solution that is in here and I'm going to filter it off into the larger bottle here. Now again, this is just a standard coffee filter. If you don't have them, take a few sheets of paper towel and put them together and do it that way. So it will take a little bit of time to filter through, but as you can see, it is doing so. There's just a lot of sludge that's developed in there now. There, I'm just going to let that filter down there. As you can see now, I've got this green sludge in here, and that sludge is now ferric potassium oxalate, and I'm going to be disposing of this. So I'll put this off camera here for now, and I'm going to let this drain down and filter down, and then when that is done, I will get back to you, and what we will do is top this off. And I think what we'll do is I'll coat a piece of paper and I'll make an exposure with that just as a test. This isn't going to be a printing demonstration at all. This is just to mix this formula for the new cyanotype formula, and we'll just make sure that it works, and we'll go on from there, all right? Actually, while that's working and while that's draining down in there, let us go and make up the clearing solution. Now what the clearing solution is it's ammonium citrate. We're going to mix that up at a 40% solution into 20, so what I've got here is 10 grams. It's going to go into 25 milliliters of water to make 25 milliliters of final. Now with this, you'll want to have an eyedropper, because what this is a clearing agent, is when we finally take this solution and coat the paper with it, just before we do that, in a shot glass, we'll mix up a couple of drops of the clearing agent in there. And what that does is it helps it to clear faster and gives it a little bit more intense blue as well. So right now what we're going to do is take a small beaker that I've got right here that I've heated up. Now again, it's always good to warm the waters before you, or the different solutions before you mix them, because it helps the particulate go into solution much faster. So let me take this here and we're going to pour it down in, and then I'm just going to mix it up this way. I'll take the other side of the stirring rod here. Now as you can see, because it's warm and because it's very soluble, it goes into solution pretty quickly. Set this back off aside. Now what I'm going to do is take that and put this into my 25 milliliter bottle here. And seal that up and put it off to the side for printing later on. All right, so this is still draining down here, as you can see. So I'm going to leave that go here for a couple of minutes. And then when this is done and down, I'm going to come back to you, all right? Stick with me. Okay, so it all filtered out, and what I've done off camera here is I've taken the liberty to dispose of the filter and to add enough liquid to make the full amount 100 milliliters. So we've made our base stock solution here, and what we need now to do to check it is to coat a piece of paper. And what I have here is a piece of Hahnemühle platinum rag, which is a great paper. I do have to say that they sponsor me, but more by just giving me paper, which is a great thing for them, and a great thing for us, because they make these papers that are specifically made for the different alternative processes, of which one of is this Hahnemühle platinum rag. Now the other thing I wanted to tell you is, although this isn't really going to be a printing demonstration here, more about mixing up this new formula, I am going to be doing a special video in conjunction with Hahnemühle on September 30th is when it will be released, September 30th, 2023. Now that, for those of you that don't know, is World Cyanotype Day. So everybody that does this process is kind of working up to do some sort of an image that day. So I'm going to be doing a video along with Hahnemühle using their Sumi e-paper, which is a really beautiful paper for cyanotype. So anyway, more on that, but stay tuned, because I will be debuting that video on the 30th of September, 2023. So anyway, Hahnemühle platinum rag. I've got my brush here. I'm going to wet, and but before I do that, I'm going to take enough sensitizer and pour it in here to cover that sheet of paper here. What I've got is a small negative here that I'm going to be using. And you may have seen one of my other videos where I made a salt print with this negative. Now the thing is the salt printing process and this new process I'm kind of considering are in similar exposure scale, so I'm hoping that this negative will work. The thing is that I will be now building a specific curve for this process in this new cyanotype process as well. So look for that in an upcoming video as well. So what I want to do is I want to coat it for this piece of this negative, and I'm going to just coat the whole piece of paper. We'll put that off to the side. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to take the sensitizer, or not the sensitizer, the clearing agent that we mixed, the ammonium citrate. Now this is a 40% solution, and I'm just going to put a couple of drops in there, and now slosh it around. And once I wet this brush and dab it out, we're going to go. So let me get that done. Now, the reason that I wet the brush like this, and then I'll just dab it off, is to make sure that the brush is good and filled with the solution, because what will happen then is it won't absorb up into the brush. Anyway, so here we go. And I've used probably far too much solution here, but I'll coat it and then let it spill over. Great. Okay, so I've got a nice coating there. A little sloppy, but good. Throw away this stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is go rinse off my brush. While that's happening, I'm going to let a little bit of the coating soak into the paper, and then I'm going to hang it up to dry. And then when I come back to you, we're going to put this into a print frame, into a print frame with the negative, and we will make our exposure. All right, stick with me. Okay, so now we've got our dried piece of paper here all nicely coated, and it's time to start our exposure. And what I'm going to do, we're going to take our print frame here, take the lid off, and I'm going to take the negative printed side, unprinted side, so just like emulsion to emulsion. I'm going to center it on there pretty nicely like that. And then I'm going to put it face down in the print frame. Put this restrainer back on. Now, as you can see, this one has a split back, and what we can do then is in printing this, I can continually open it up and I can look and see how the print is progressing on the back, because this is a printing out process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up here in the plate burner. I'm going to put it right at 20 minutes right now. There we go, 20 minutes. So as you can see, it's ready to go. I'm going to put it in the plate burner here, and I am going to start it up. So now, as it's printing, I'm going to go in there and open up, and we'll open up the split back, and you can see how the print is progressing with me. So while that's happening, let me clean up some of the surface around here. Have a quick peek, and now what I'll do is I'll bring this out and show you that it's already working. As you can see, we're starting to get blue here. Now, what I can also do on this camera is show you the process here, and you can see that the image is there. Now you can see in the white areas, it's still quite yellow. Now that again will clear out at the end when we wash it out. Now there's no real development, there's just rinsing it in water, and because we've put that clearing agent in there, it's going to clear much quicker. That yellow will go away and turn into white, and the print will be will stabilize more. So let's get this back in here. I'm going to let it go for some time, and then I'll come back to you, all right? Okay, let's go. We're in there, we've been in there for 6 minutes now. It's time to pull it out, and what I'm going to do is turn off the burner here. We're going to pull the print out. And as you can see, got kind of an interesting image here. Now I'm going to take it over and I'm going to rinse this out. I'm going to then dry it, and I'm going to come back to you and show you the finished project, okay? Well, okay, this is pretty spectacular. The thing is about with a normal cyanotype as well is you have to really kind of go overboard with the exposure to begin with, and then when you're washing it, it washes a lot of the blue away, and so you lose a lot of that exposure. That's not really the case with this new cyanotype process. As you can see here, this is really pretty beautiful. I mean, it's really lost none of the coloring in its washing, and it's quite spectacular. I'm really pleased with it. Now the other thing is that this negative that I made was not made with a curve for this specific process. So as you can see, there's a pretty nice tonal range in there. So as I'm reading this right now, it's very close in exposure scale to the salt printing process, because this is a negative that was made for the salt printing process. So yeah, it's just really nice. Now this wasn't intending to be a printing video here. This was just more to help you with the new process and the new formula. But I am really happy with the print, and I'm going to be doing more videos like this, like I said earlier. Look for one on the 30th of September of 2023. This is when this is happening, because that is World Cyanotype Day, and I've been asked to do a video in conjunction with Hahnemühle, who sponsors me with paper. And I'm going to be doing that with their Sumi E paper. It's a really beautiful, very fine paper, and it works really well with this process. So stay tuned, please, for that day, September 30th. It will be out there. If you're a subscriber, you'll be notified about it. If not, it would be really great if you did subscribe or tell a friend about this. But yeah, for now, I'm really happy with this. I am hoping that you will have fun with this process yourself. Again, you're going to be needing the chemistry that I had spoke of before. You're going to be needing potassium ferricyanide, ferric ammonium oxalate. You're going to be needing sodium citrate, and ammonium dichromate. Now, all of the formula will be written below, as well as some suggestions of where you can buy this chemistry. And I just hope that you have fun with this. This is great. I really like this new cyanotype process. I mean, imagine this process. It's almost a couple hundred years old now, and it's only been recently that Mike Ware and others have come up with this new formula that actually makes quite a much more permanent and really beautiful images as far as I can see. So with that, give me a thumbs up if you like this. Have fun with your own process at home. Be careful. And till the next time, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.